We know that this got to be pretty personal. How bad does this get in November?
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like, every election, you and I talk about how dirty and mudslinging the politics were. And I think every time I say this is the worst I've seen it, and this was by far, in my at least history covering elections during a primary, the most contentious that I've seen. Because in addition to the governor's race with Ronchetti and Dow getting very personal towards the end, and the consequence of that being a lot of folks are telling me that Rebecca Dow might not be quick to give a formal endorsement to Ronchetti, which obviously is something that he needs moving forward. But you also had the attorney general's race with Torres and Colon that was incredibly divisive, intense. You had a number of other races down the ticket that were just as brutal. So I think collectively, we probably have to say this was one of the most divisive and most personal attack ad focused campaigns that I've seen. So I would anticipate seeing, unfortunately, more of the same when we get to the general election. And I think already starting to see the governor and Republican nominee Ronchetti already starting to frame their campaigns. And I would anticipate voters waking up, unfortunately, tomorrow and probably seeing the first wave of ads that are going to be featured from both Ronchetti and Lujan Grisham.
Is it too far of a leap to say that we may start seeing campaign ads tomorrow? It doesn't sound like it.
No, absolutely not. In fact, I think they've already made their TV ad buys already for the next couple of days. And we already saw at the tail end of even now during the primary, we saw Mark Ronchetti already starting to frame some of his last push in TV ads directly at the governor. And obviously, although they don't look like campaign ads, Governor Lujan Grisham has been releasing a series of short spots already in full campaign mode. So get ready for it. If voters were hoping to have maybe a week off of campaign ads before things ramp up again, I don't think they're going to get that.
Let's look at the governor's race here locally. What does each one of them have to do if they want to win? Is it going to be more of an uphill battle maybe for the governor or more for Ronchetti? Can you give me your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, as we know now, it's going to be the showdown that at least I had predicted a while back. And I know a lot of folks are looking forward to, Ronchetti versus Lujan Grisham. And at least a little bit of early polling that had, at least reputable polling that had both candidates head to head indicated this was going to be a pretty tight race. And I anticipate it will be. I think at the end of the day, this is a very tall order for Mr. Ronchetti. New Mexicans historically give incumbents a second term in governors. And, Governor Lujan Grisham is sitting on a large war chest and will have more resources, I believe, than Ronchetti in the state that already leans Democrat. So I think Lujan Grisham, to me, is definitely the favorite in this race and should feel very good about where things stand as we begin the general election campaign. Republicans, however, can feel the national mood moving increasingly from the Democratic Party and away from the Biden administration. So Ronchetti has utilized a lot of the national themes in his primary, including making immigration and border enforcement a major emphasis of his campaign. And I think he will continue to do that with hopes that it will energize enthusiasm from his base, which he desperately needs to be competitive. I think his bigger challenge is going to be pivoting to the middle of the road during the general election to capture a sizable segment of moderate Democrats and a large segment of independents, at least enough to squeeze out a tight victory. I think he can do this by continuing to focus on crime and inflation and really try to frame this as an election about Governor Lujan Grisham not taking care of those two particular issues that are on the forefront of voters' minds. It's a very small path to victory. We often talk about how many lanes the candidates have to get to victory. And I think for Ronchetti, he maybe only has that one playbook to be successful, but it is a lane that I could see him pulling out. So I think that's essentially what needs to happen for Ronchetti to pull this out. Governor Lujan Grisham has to do what she's been doing. Focus on some positive messaging themes, what she's done for New Mexicans, how she's been able to maneuver around COVID, and try to put as much distance between herself and all the bad memories folks have about COVID and the pandemic and her having to make some tough decisions that hurt small businesses, et cetera, et cetera. The more she can put that in the rearview mirror and focus on the future and really sell to New Mexicans that she's the trusted voice that will continue New Mexico through this difficult period and really focus on the future. If she can do that, I think she gets a second term in office.
The Attorney General's race, we're seeing Raul Torres seemingly take charge in this case. How do you think he was able to win in this case?
I think he benefited from the sophisticated nature of New Mexican voters. I think New Mexicans don't get enough credit for how savvy they are as an electorate. And I think we've seen in 2 elections, Mayor Keller's successful victory and now Raul Torres' successful victory here in this race, that voters understand big issues like crime can't be solved overnight and can't be blamed on one individual. They understand these are systems level issues. And I think at the end of the day, Raul Torres was able to convince voters that he understands those systems and he's the right person to be in a prominent role. Top lawyer in the state is how the AG is often referred to hopefully make some progress on the crime issue. The other thing that we learned is, the overall landscape of the state of New Mexico is moving increasingly towards Bernalillo County as the real deal, so to speak, if we're thinking about paths to get to victory. So it looks like in order to win statewide, you're going to have to do very well in Bernalillo County, and Raul Torres did that. We knew he was going to be victorious in the county, but I think by the margin that he succeeded in the county and then consequently in the overall state was something even I did not predict happening as convincingly as it did for Raul Torres tonight. It's a big win for him.
Does Jeremy Gay, the Republican nominee, have a shot in this? I know we've historically spoken about how it is a tough field, just the AG's race in general in New Mexico, but do you think Jeremy Gay has a shot against Torres, or is it maybe too early to tell at this point?
I think Jeremy Gay, from what I can tell, is a quality candidate, and I think he's going to run a strong campaign. I think he's got history that's not working with him. Very, very seldomly do Republicans win attorney general in the state of New Mexico. It just doesn't happen very often. It hasn't happened recently. And he's also got a very formidable candidate who has proven that he's battle tested and survived a very difficult race that got personal. He maneuvered through all of that, and he's proven that he can raise large amounts of money. So I think all those factors come into play. I would be incredibly surprised if on November election night, we're not naming Raul Torres as our next attorney general, and if it's not a wide margin of victory. But hey, strange things happen in New Mexico politics. And I think, we never rule out a candidate. I think, the Republican challenger in this race has a quote unquote puncher's chance at victory, right? So it might not be a huge opportunity, but it's an opportunity nonetheless. And he can squeak this out if everything goes his way and Raul Torres makes some critical mistakes. I think that's really the only path to victory for him. But at the end of the day, it is a path.
Do you think this is a springboard for somebody who you expect to see in New Mexico politics for some time?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. I think this is a prime opportunity for Mr. Torres as Attorney General to frame himself to New Mexicans in a way that catapults him to other things. What those other things are, only he knows that, right? Whether that's ambitions for governor, for U.S. Senate, whatever it might be. But I will caution our viewers on this point. It wasn't that long ago we were talking about, myself included, Hector Balderas in the very same context of being able to take this position with a very bright future ahead, and things change over time. So I think Raul Torres hopefully can learn from some of those lessons, utilize this as a proper springboard, and he's a very strategic gentleman, so I anticipate he's going to make the most of this opportunity.
It sounds like this is going to be quite a gauntlet for political advertising, for what should be a maybe exciting, maybe a loud primary, to say the least, or I'm sorry, general election, to say the least.
Oh, absolutely. I think you've got in Ronchetti and Lujan Grisham, you've got two candidates that are going to raise a ton of outside money. What that means for viewers is outside PACs spending money on their own direct campaign ad buys. So you're going to be getting messaging coming from the candidates themselves, as well as from those outside PACs. And unfortunately, because I know viewers that I hear from don't like the mudslinging and the personal attack mode of politics, whenever those super PACs get involved, and they're going to get involved in this race, unfortunately, we should anticipate some of that dirty mudslinging style politics, unfortunately, in the months ahead.